at last, I mean, they crawl their way to dismantling themselves and the numbers beat.
Yeah, I mean, I think the estimates are really important here. I mean, I generally think the estimates are overestimated in terms of their importance. But I think that, especially when it comes to this company right here, I mean, what we see is the company trying to really bail itself out of a situation, a hole it's dug itself into over the course of really a better part of a decade. We saw declining revenues of about 4% on a year-over-year basis, but that's better than we've seen in previous quarters when we've seen double-digit declines. So they'll take what they can get here. The question is, can they find a business underneath all the garbage that is Yahoo that actually is a profitable business for them to run?
I mean, amazing. Just looking back on the Bloomberg, it's not since like halfway through 2014 that we saw any sort of revenue growth for this particular company. Yeah. So age-old. David, you're a man who still has a Yahoo email address. Give us the sense of...
Trying to embarrass me.
Did you just call him
not
old?
really. I'm not ashamed of it, no.
You're not ashamed? You weren't worried when the hack attacks happened, and it seems as though many weren't. When you're looking at the numbers, not many people left the business, left Yahoo, even when those massive hack attacks were made public.
Well, I think those of us who do have Yahoo emails recognize that they have instituted a lot of security measures in recent years, probably because this was going on in the background even before we knew about it. I mean, they often require two-factor authentication for me especially when I'm traveling. They're constantly forcing me to get a text on my phone or whatever in order to continue using Yahoo. Sometimes when I shift from one platform to another, they make me do that. It's reassuring. It seems to me like they have a pretty good handle on security from the standpoint of my account. And I actually, interestingly, don't experience that with Google. It may be that their security is good too. I have a Google account. But, you know, I actually think overall that Yahoo is sort of mildly turning around, you know, just before it's going into the maw of Verizon. And, you know, I continue to be somebody who doesn't think that Marissa Mayer has made a disaster of it. I think it was an incredibly difficult situation to come into, and they've built some new mobile businesses. And in fact, you know, their revenues and profits are looking better than they were. So, you know, that's impressive to some degree.
You know, they sent out this weird sort of one-pager. Of course, they didn't do the traditional conference call with analysts or the untraditional Yahoo video conference call with analysts. But furthermore, they aren't releasing financials for a lot of the categories that are most important, and yet they tell us things in this sort of one-page press release they sent around saying that Yahoo Q4 GAAP revenue for their mail business was up over 30%. Now, GAAP revenue for a thing that you don't actually release any GAAP revenue numbers for is not GAAP revenue. They're just putting that word on it. But in fact, saying that it's up 31%, if it's true, and we don't know because they won't show us the numbers, would be very impressive for Yahoo Mail. It just shows you how cutting edge David Kirkpatrick is.
Oh, thank you.
To be fair, I do get two-way security, two-part security from my Google account as well, so maybe we need to click a button. But David, it's interesting that we are seeing the SEC now wading in and wanting to look into what happened to the Yahoo breaches here. Horse bolting, is that kind of what's been felt here? If we did see someone having to pay up or be fined for what happened, would it be Verizon or what's left of Yahoo, Altenbar?
Well, it probably would ultimately be Verizon who would pay a fine if there is one. And certainly one cannot say that it was a good... I can't feel anything but sadness and some fear at a scale of the attacks that Yahoo clearly suffered, some of them several years ago. It's just we're hearing about them more recently. These were gargantuan, disastrous, embarrassing attacks that should not have happened. But will they have a consequence on the deal? I doubt it. Will they end up being Verizon's problem later? Probably. Could it result in Verizon negotiating a lower price? Perhaps. We don't know. They're being kind of tight-lipped about that, but that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, Cory, weigh in there, because the fact that they pushed back the closing date, does that mean there could be negotiation?
It's never a good sign, right? We know that they're trying to figure out a lot more about this deal, and I think the SEC investigation might be part of this. I mean, the SEC has instituted these somewhat new rules saying companies have to disclose this information because it can damage the value of what people are buying and what they think they're investing in. That certainly happened with Verizon. This company isn't any stronger because of those attacks. It isn't any better than what Verizon thought it was buying because of those attacks, and that's why the same reason the SEC is looking at this.